All right, it tells me I'm live. So this is, I guess what? It's Wednesday, November 13th. I am doing another impromptu Language Jones live stream. We'll see how long this goes or what I talk about. I had a couple of ideas I didn't think were worth making a video. I'm not sure if anybody's out there. So Zevel, if you're missing this, I apologize. But let's see. If you're out there, if you're listening, say hello. Give me something in the chat so I know you're out there. I see it looks like there's 2 viewers right now. So hello to both if you're still there. So yeah, today I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the lessons learned from previous kind of language learning excursions that I had, and then maybe do some like answering questions that people have, if you have any questions that kind of come to mind. Gabriel, hello. Good to see you. So yeah, oh, I see. There's a few people here. Matt's here. Jem is here. I'm just happy to be back on live. It's been a little while. Things have been very crazy, not just in the world, but also like here. And so I'm happy to be here. I see there's a handful of people. Aaron, hi. Kay, hi. I see Von Peterhoff, hello. David Cantor, hello. Hi to everybody. I see. Am I going to do more Hebrew live streams? Yes, I definitely am. I'm kind of revising stuff. Let me ask all of you who are here. I see. Got the alert and just dropped in. I also see Language Jones and his band. That might be a new channel. That'll be Jazz by Jones. But good to see you, Christopher Hall. I have a question for those of you out there. I had discussed with a couple of friends of mine something that I've never seen anybody do, but I thought it might be interesting. I have a couple of ideas for academic publications that I'm pursuing. And a lot of people ask me how you go about actually like writing a linguistics paper, submitting a linguistics paper, and so on. And I thought, it might be interesting to do this live, right? To actually write a paper live. Now, I'm not going to do that today, but I am going to do that at some point. Or I'm thinking about doing that at some point if there's enough interest in it. So it seems like the pros are that it's like pre-registering a paper basically. If there's any challenges to like data or anything like that, then it's very public. Like you can go and actually see exactly what I did from tip to tail. And in the past, co-authors of mine and I have had some reviewers and so on with sort of disingenuous criticisms. YouTube's telling me now would be a good time to insert ads, but I'm not going to do it. I'm gonna keep talking to you all. So yeah, we've had sort of weird criticisms where there's insinuations of data misconduct and that kind of thing. Obviously, nothing actually came of those things because we keep track of our data. But I was thinking about this because I have a couple of ideas. The reason I started rambling about this after being asked about Hebrew is because I have a sort of Hebrew phonology paper that I'm interested in writing. Now, challenges are it kind of de-anonymizes stuff if you're talking about double-blind peer review. However, I am not so hubristic and proud as to assume that the peer reviewers for a phonology paper are necessarily following my channel. So, it's kind of hard to say whether that would be a good idea or not. But I'm curious what people think about that if you're interested in that, because I can definitely continue just studying languages, talking about that kind of thing. But I figure if I'm writing a paper, I have one that's a Hebrew phonology paper looking at, I don't want to give away the whole game right now, but looking at like underspecification in the Hebrew verbal system and whether you even need the templates in the sort of root template morphology approach to things, or if in a number of cases we might want to take a step back and see whether our assumptions about these forms are even necessary. I also have a couple of phonetics papers that I was looking at writing using various corpora. And so there's a lot of different things that I could do, but I thought maybe something more like a hands-on, more like a lab, more like a how-to might be interesting. But it might be interesting for a much smaller group of people than the people who are, how do I learn a language? So let's see. I see a bunch of things in the chat. I see Zevel, it's time. Good to see you. Happy New Year, and we got all sorts of going stuff. I see. What is this? Rocky says, "Hearing the intro music in my head, I'd like to know how it sounds." Oh, you mean my language tones? The that one actually, by the way, that's a track called Erica. It is as like spelled like Badu, and it's one that I share profit with the musician who made it. So it's kind of a nice thing that YouTube does, where it's licensable music, but they get like every time you listen to it on my channel, they get a little fraction of a cent or something. I see, Monsieur, I see, bonjour, hola, etc. Victor says, Orthodox? Yeah, but not Eastern. I see Taj says, hey man, you inspired me to keep up my language studies. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. I keep trying to find the fun and the joy in it and share that with everybody. Rustam says, Skibbity Rizzler Gyat. And Ohio to you. As well. Let's see. Hello from London. Hello. Taj says you're self-studying Hebrew. Yeah, we're gonna. I'm still kind of working on it. I've changed some, and I'll show everybody what I'm doing now. It's a little bit different from what I've been doing. And I see Zevel. What have you missed, man? Zevel, you missed Rosh Hashanah, you missed Yom Kippur, you missed Sukkot, you missed Shmini Atzeret, you missed, there's a lot of stuff, but nothing really on the channel. So let's see, hoping to learn Cantonese one day, but still only beginner, intermediate, Mandarin. Does it make more sense to focus on Mandarin first, or is it better to learn both at once? Matt, is your goal to speak both Mandarin and Cantonese, or is your goal to speak Cantonese and somebody told you that you have to learn Mandarin first? Because I was thinking about making a video on sort of similar topics. People often say you should study Latin before you study, French or Spanish or whatever. If your goal is to speak Cantonese, and that's just the main goal, just study Cantonese. If your goal is to understand like Sinitic languages, then both at the same time are going to be great, and you're gonna have sort of mental mnemonics and hooks and priming and everything that kind of helps them both. You'll have to make sure you don't confuse them, but with a different tonal system, with a different syllable system, I don't think it should be that difficult. And it's something I would say just do them both. It'll reinforce. It's like learning French and Italian at the same time. They're different, but then if I remember, j'ai besoin, then I can remember au bisogno as well, because they're kind of related. It primes the other one. Let's see. Man, there's all sorts of stuff. The Nukud secret. You know what the secret is? The secret of the Nukud is go to the library. The public library, at least where I am, the public library has tons and tons and tons of books, and they all have, at least for the children, they all have vowels. And then you get into like intermediate stuff. But by the time you've read all the children's books and the young children's books and the elementary school books, by the time you're done with that, then you're not going to need the vowels anyway. Let's see. I honestly really liked it. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about there. This is going on too far. Salam, Akha. Salam. Good to see you as well. I'm going to go back to Persian too. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I see a few more things that I'll address. You've been watching stuff for a couple months. Thank you. You said thanks, keep it up. Thank you. I'm trying to keep it up. Hello from Morocco. Hello. I want to come visit. Everyone in my life but me has been to Morocco, and everyone has loved it. And I have not gone. I've just watched YouTube videos and tried to live vicariously through them. And one day I'll get there. All right. Thoughts on critical period hypothesis. I have not made a video on it, and I probably should. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I think it's real, but overstated in terms of what it means for language learners and for adult learners. So there's all sorts of ongoing learning that we can do, and it should not dissuade you from learning as an adult, but it is very clear that the way that children learn is sort of qualitatively different from how adults learn. And this is not just language. This is all sorts of different domains. So like, I've mentioned before that I do jujitsu. Kids just intuitively understand like framing and moving in particular ways that then adults have to relearn how to do, because we learned, you don't touch people in the face or whatever. This is the same thing with language learning. There's some that's they just soak it up in a way that we kind of have to study a little bit more. But it should not dissuade you that children are just amazing. Just, go out and study. Let's see. Just learn that some we're getting in the ah and the a and the ooh. I don't know what we're talking about here. I'm going to skip that. Psychology degree. Man, I forgot how many people tune into the live stream if I picked the right time. Let's see. Okay, a couple things. I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to kind of say the things that I came on here to say today. And full disclosure, I'm live streaming today because I didn't release a video last week, and I need to have at least one video up where I can then get another credit. I see frame rate is bad for some people, so I'm going to try to adjust that, but you may lose me for a second. I'm hardwired in. But the wire sometimes moves, so apologies. It could just be that I have a lot of stuff that I recorded on my computer right now that I need to actually delete to free up a little bit of memory. All right, so let's see. Just started learning a language that doesn't use the Roman alphabet. Goal is basic conversation, not reading or writing. Should you still learn the alphabet? Meh. You can. I think alphabets, honestly, are not that hard. It takes a little bit of practice, but once you understand it, you understand it. The thing about something like Arabic is that they don't really write the vowels. Just like Hebrew, they don't write the vowels. And so you have to know the words anyway. So you might as well just practice in transliteration like I do with Hebrew, like I do with Persian. Learn how to read and write, but then it's not until you're at an intermediate level already that you're going to be able to like read new words and actually understand what the vowels are likely to be. So you might as well get to an intermediate level and then worry about really focusing on reading and writing. Let's see, another comment. The Gen Alpha slang video was helpful. Love it. Am I going to do more Spanish videos? I am. I had one about the subjunctive recently that's not specifically Spanish, but useful. And in this week's video, my ad read for Lingota is in Spanish. I signed into a class last week, and there was one other person in the class. And the guy was like, "Are you Language Jones?" It's like, I signed up because I watched your thing. So it was fun. I was like, yeah, I actually use the stuff I say I use. So yeah, I guess I don't have to live stream. You can also find me in the Lingota classrooms or in the italki classrooms or whatever else. Let's see. Or any chance I could do Hebrew Gaelic study or paper? Another podcast mentioned the similarities between those two languages. I don't know enough about Gaelic. I know it's very interesting. I would have to ask. My go-to historical linguist is someone who was in my cohort at Penn, again in grad school. So I would usually just go ask David Wilson something. And I know that Gaelic languages are very interesting. I just don't know anything about them. Let's see. Saw a video which made the claim that English is a French Creole. Any thoughts on this? I have a lot of thoughts on this. That is something that John McWhorter popularized years and years ago. I think the broader discussion that happens there is a question about what it means to be a Creole language. So I have a couple of books on my shelf that are about contact languages, about Creoles. Sally Coco Mufwene makes the argument that there's a sort of ecological sort of system in, for instance, African American English, and that one of the things, hopefully I'm not misattributing the argument here, but one of the things that happens with Creole languages is it depends on where it is, whether it's called a Creole. So you have contact languages, and then you have this sort of narrative about Creoles that's still sometimes taught in Ling 1, even though it's not true, which is that you have contact, and then you have a pidgin, which develops for communication. So that's like, you have very limited vocabulary, very limited grammar, and then, the language gets kind of fleshed out and it becomes its own thing. The evidence for that sort of pidgin stage is not super strong. And there's a lot of counter evidence as well. So it's this is a huge contentious field that I don't want to wade too far into because I have enough contentious stuff in my corner of linguistics. But the idea then is that, we should really be talking about contact languages. And if you're talking about contact languages, well, English, England was conquered in 1066, and the ruling class spoke French, and we have, something like, different people count it differently, but between 40 and 80% of our vocabulary overlaps with French. So we'll just say 60%, right, is French. And so, what does it mean to call something a Creole? I think it's the sort of spiciest phrasing that you can take on the spiciest position that you can take on the history of English, while recognizing that we have a sort of lexical stratum that comes from French. Then everything starts looking like a creole, right? So Persian, is that a Iranian, Indo-Iranian Arabic creole? It's really hard to sort of determine this, but I have a lot of thoughts on it. That's the sort of high level overview. You could make that argument, but it feels like it's doing something social more than it is doing something linguistic. It's making a point about how we talk about creoles rather than making an interesting point about English, which is not to criticize Dr. McWhorter for his ideas. I see people saying the stream's not doing great, but then other people seem to be okay. So apologies. I'm trying to see what's going on with my OBS, and I promise you all I will get this together, because this YouTube is now going to be my main focus especially in 2025. So I'm getting new cameras. I'm getting my streaming good. Like I am all in on this in 2025. So you're going to be, if you want to, because you choose whether to click, but you're going to be seeing a lot more of me. So that's the the idea there. But yeah, Language Jones was always a sandbox for learning how to do YouTube. I have some other projects coming up with some colleagues of mine, and we're launching a whole separate channel, probably 2 channels that'll be related, which relate to culture, communication, conflict. It's going to be a lot of fun. I will say more about that when I can, but I'll say more about it with, faster streaming, better video quality, all that good stuff. Let's see. New subscriber from Colombia. Thank you. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Okay. Moroccan Arabic isn't a written language anyway, if that's what you wish to learn. I see in the chat. People do write it, but they use sort of transliteration. Moroccan Arabic is delightful. Hello from Chicago. How's progress with the book on Black English? It's coming along. I'm still trying to get interest from publishers, and part of that is it doesn't fit neatly into existing niches. So there's, pop linguistics, kind of fits there. There's some social justice stuff, it kind of fits there, but it's actually a little bit tricky. So I have a good friend who's published a handful of books, and she's put me in contact with a handful of publishers and with a handful of agents. But the main thing right now is just writing. And I think the thing that was great about that YouTube video, for me anyway, is that I can point to people and say, listen, if you like this, that's my tone, right? I can adapt it more academic or, more explanatory for a book or whatever. But like, this is something that people respond well to. And so I have a lot of other aspects of that I'm writing. I don't like the idea of writing without an advance, but we'll see what happens. I have about half of it written already. So let's see. ¿Cómo va tu español? It's okay. I say, for those of you who don't speak Spanish, permit me, pardon my Spanish for a moment. Hace solo 2 meses que estudio español y ahora, puedo entender muchas cosas, conoce muchas palabras, pero no puedo expresarme super fluently just yet. So hopefully I didn't make any mistakes right there. But if I did, it gives you an honest evaluation. I haven't been focusing super hard on it. What I've been doing is really working on building vocabulary and taking Lingo lessons when I can to kind of, start speaking. But what I will say is the vocabulary, there's so much overlap with English that it is really great. So I'm reading a lot now, and I feel like I can get a lot. I'm starting to understand this sort of, the YouTuber comprehensible input thing where they're like, read a lot of language. I'm like, that doesn't work for me. Like if I'm trying to read in Hebrew, like I don't know how the word sounds. I don't know what the roots are. I don't know what's going on here. Spanish, man, I can just read a lot of Spanish and I'm just learning words. So it's like I get it now when it's like, oh, pick a language that's actually closer to your language. And this is really, really useful. Let's see. How do I learn Arabic? Zevel, if I knew, What I'll tell you is don't use the Routledge Colloquial Arabic books. They're terrible. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I have tried learning Arabic twice in the last 20 years, and I learned a lot about Arabic, but I didn't really learn Arabic. So, not sure what to tell you there. Because I don't have access to a lot of good resources. So, and maybe, ask the chat. Maybe somebody knows better resources, because like I said, Routledge Colloquial Levantine Arabic is not it. For those of you who watch those live streams, you saw me get increasingly frustrated and learn nothing. Let's see. Silly Catboy says, what's happening? Just chilling. Let's see. If there's one thing Duolingo isn't bad for, it's learning another alphabet. That's true. Let's see. Literacy, Spanish, subjunctive videos, good. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I went out on a limb there because I think there's a lot of things like the subjunctive where linguists know this stuff. I have a fantastic book on mood and modality, and it's like, this is so useful, but it just isn't taught because people assume either they don't know it or they assume that we couldn't understand it. And so it's not synthesized and explained in a way that's digestible. I went to the library and got a French children's book for like ages like 2 to 4. And the subjunctive is in it, right? They use the subjunctive. And so it's the kind of thing that like toddlers know. And part of why I thought it was really interesting that they use the subjunctive is this particular example sentence was like, I'm so proud that you expressed your emotions, I think, like that you talked about your emotions. And it's something that in English would have been like, I'm so proud that you should have the ability to talk about your emotions. But it was literally, it was the subjunctive. And I was like, I would never before have understood why this is in the subjunctive. And now I'm like, it's presupposed, right? That's exactly what it is. It's just that presupposition. Anybody in the chat who's wondering what I'm talking about, I do have a video on the subjunctive and I talk about it, and it's not what you think it is. Presupposition is one of the things. Background knowledge is one of the things. Hello from South America, South Africa. Hello from South Africa. Reminds me of the time that I was working at Rosetta Stone in Grand Central Terminal, and somebody said that they're from Central African Republic, and I said, which one? And they said, no, Central African Republic. So, hello from South Africa. I assume you mean actual South Africa and not Southern Africa. Yeah, hi, hey, hello, Sobona, all the good stuff. Let's see. Yeah, Spanish is easy when you already have English and French and some Latin and so on. It's wild. There's there's a book called The Everyday Language of White Racism, which is a fantastic book. But she has a chapter on mock Spanish, and I'm always very sensitive. I mean, this is part of why I waited to learn Spanish. I felt reluctant to, because there's this stereotype that you just add an O or an A to, an English word. And I didn't want to fall into that. And as I'm learning Spanish, there's a lot of words that kind of fit that. There's a lot of words like that. So, I don't want to make any assumptions about it. I'm making sure that I learn, that I acquire something first. But man, there's a lot. There's and E, right? Clases and so on. So it really helps to look at all the cognates. There are also, of course, false friends. Is English really a Romance language with some Germanic words? No, Rich, exact opposite. It is a Germanic language with a bunch of Romance words. And that there's a bunch of reasons why we would say that, but it's very clearly its genetic history, so to speak, is Germanic. It is a very Germanic language. It's like extremely Germanic. We just have a lot of French words. So the Germanic things are like phrasal verbs. The Germanic things are like core vocabulary. So if you look at Germanic languages, they have words like brother and father and mother. Romance languages, a little bit different in terms of, what those words look like. But if you look at German, Yiddish, Dutch, like you're going to see cognate words with English, like snow, for instance, in the really base vocabulary, kinship terms, weather, colors, like all that stuff, plus just all sorts of other, grammatical things that are very, very Germanic. Ever wanted to try learning Javanese? I feel like there's not enough time. for everything. Let's see. Do I know any place to practice learning invented languages? I don't. I'm not the right person. So a colleague of mine, Christopher Hall, who may or may not be on the chat, is probably a better person to talk to. I have a love-hate relationship with conlangs because my introduction to love of languages was first going places. I'm an army brat, so my dad was in the army. I grew up moving every 2 years, and it was going to France, it was going to Germany, it was going to Russia, it was going to all these different places and seeing how people live and interacting and eating the food and listening to the music and everything that got me into languages in the first place. So with conlangs, there just isn't that, right? Even if I could get some sort of kosher knockoff gach, like there's no Klingons for me to actually hang out with. Let's see, subjunctive video of the Old English students, amazing. Let's see, just so much info to assimilate in a couple minutes. Are you talking about the subjunctive video? Yeah. I tried to cover everything conceptually, and if I had added more examples, I think it would have been a 40, 50-minute video. The other thing about that, too, is that I feel like if you're the kind of person who clicks on a video explaining the subjunctive, you probably have come across some example sentences that you're trying to understand, rather than, like, just being like, oh, what's this? Like, give me an example. Zevel says Semitic languages or Romance languages, and I will say, why not both? ¿Por qué no los dos? Let's see. Bulletproof Kate, first time catching live stream, but you love linguistics content. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have a new one coming out this week. Like I said, I'm live streaming so I can use a credit for accelerated AI editing. And I'm going to be talking about the Common European Framework for reference for languages, and also neurodivergence. So it's going to have a little spicy title to get people to actually click on it, to bait them into clicking, if you will. But the idea is, the C2 level is sort of qualitatively different than what you need to learn to get to B2. And in some ways it relates to sort of neurodivergence in interesting ways. So not to give the whole thing away, but look out for that. What's my favorite pipe? Not language related. I have, so you see the pipes on the background. A bunch of those are my grandfather's. And some of them are not smokable anymore. I also only smoke a pipe like once a year. But I actually really like, there's a Czech brand of pipes that you can get on Amazon, which has like sort of broken English on it. It's like, pipe is good for man. And I really like them. I don't know if I have any like within reach. I keep them in my like pockets of my winter coats. But yeah, they're super cheap. They're on Amazon. It's probably the first thing that comes up when you look for pipe, and they're pretty fine. I especially like the ones that have a filter because smoking a pipe is not good for you. So it's one of those things. It's like, it's nice every now and then in moderation. And they mass produce some pretty nice pipes now. The real question is what kind of tobacco, and I alternate different things, but I do like the sort of sweet tobaccos with like a vanilla kind of thing. I'm just I like it. The Elohad Kosher Gach. I'm glad I got somebody there. Poondog, glad to see you here. So finally here I can relax now. I've never seen you and Language Simp in the same room at the same time. So just saying. All right. I have to know where to find the Klingons. Yeah, Judith. And I do want to read Hamlet in the original Klingon. So, it's the Esperantists are the closest thing to a living conlang culture, and that's a stretch. If your conlang of choice is Tokipono, there's a whole discussion here on conlangs. I will let you all have that discussion. So okay, let me get into. I'm gonna just skim these, and then I'm gonna get into what I want to talk to you all about. So Zevel, what do I mean by neurodivergence? That's I'm gonna be talking a little bit about ADHD and autism spectrum. Autism in particular, a very wide spectrum. But it's something that can give people language learning superpowers up to a point, and that point is about B2. And then getting from B2 to C2 is, depending on where you fall on that spectrum, anywhere from difficult to impossible. It's also, for those of us who are not on the autism spectrum. And I joke about this like Sheldon Cooper, where it's like, they had me checked. For those of us who are not there, it actually is kind of an interesting thing. We're getting from B2 to C2 in the Common European Framework is easier than it might appear, because B2 seems like it's all this, you get there, it's so much work to learn all these words, all this grammar, all this vocabulary, all these structures and idioms and everything. And then it turns out that getting from B2 to C2 is using that for things like implications and insinuations and understanding subtext and gauging people's emotions. Like, that's what they're actually testing you on. I won't get too far into this. I really don't want to give away the whole video, but I did, for what it's worth, read a nearly 300-page report from the European Council on the Sefer levels to understand, what the real meaning is of these things. And so when people self-evaluate at B2 or C2 or whatever, how reliably can we actually do that? Let's see. Construct and genitive. That sounds. Oh, yeah, thank you. And you know what? I've actually written about what looks a lot like construct state in Zulu. So it's not. I think I called it like Izafa constructions in Zulu or something like that. But it's not solely applicable to Semitic languages. Let's see. I mentioned that I was learning French. If I was doing it all over, I'd learn the female forms of words and expand from there. Yeah, I'd learn the feminine first because it's predictable. So for anybody who missed that, if you're learning French, this is for you. If you're not, this is just a fun fact. The feminine forms in French have, they're not predictable from the masculine forms. The masculine forms are predictable from the feminine forms. So for instance, if you say the color white, I'm looking at something, I'm looking at the keyboard here. So white and black, I have white keys on the keyboard. If it's masculine, it's blanc. If it's feminine, it's blanche. And you might think, okay, then I can just add sh to, any other masculine word, but that's not how it works at all. So instead, what's happening is the feminine is in some ways the default form of the word. And then the masculine is like lopping off the last sound. So I don't know, colors are maybe not the best for that, because all I can think of now are colors that don't change. I'm like, azul, no, noir. So let me think of maybe another example. Rouge doesn't change. Marron doesn't change. Let me think of something that's not a color. So so for instance, masculine and feminine for happy, like heureuse is feminine, heureux is masculine. You lop off that end sound, but you'll notice it's not heureuse like blanche. So all these things, the feminine is not predictable from the masculine. Maybe if you learn the spelling rules, you can do it, but it's actually easier just learn the feminine, and the masculine you can just do on your own. Figuring it out. As far as like tips like that for German, I mean, I don't know, because that's sort of a quirk of French. For German, I mean, I guess I could say make sure that you learn your phrasal verbs all, together. So I would, if I was gonna be learning German, I would probably be memorizing like phrasal verbs in the past tense, meaning. So my father-in-law like uses made-up fake phrasal German verbs for fun, and so it's always like he downgesat, but that's how I'd learn it. Like I wouldn't learn like downsitzen. I would learn, which is obviously not a word, but I'd learn like downgesat. So I know like how it fits. I know what all the pieces are, and I know what it's going to look like in the past tense. Let's see. Workshopping, streamlining Anki cards. That actually gets me into kind of where I wanted to go today, and I will actually say my brief thing. Linguistic stereotypes. You are all sorts of good stuff. MS, thank you for your comments. And and Philly, all right. Philly's hosting a linguistics conference coming up in a little while. Levana Badlila says, or Levana Badlila says, what is a conlang? A constructed language. So not a natural language, but one that people made up, like Klingon or Vulcan or Dothraki or Navi or, insert conlang here. Anil says, I just found out that I have autism. There's a lot of, man, there's a lot of self-diagnosis happening on the internet, and I'm very wary of playing into that. But I will say there's a lot of content for ADHD and autism, and even if you don't have either of those, it's really interesting to learn how other people's brains work and to figure out maybe how your own brain works and learn skills from them. I was thinking about masking. So a lot of autistic people who are, it might be referred to as high functioning, they do what's called masking, which is like, I'm performing that I'm neurotypical, but it's exhausting. If you're masking, you're really good at it. It's totally different in a different language, a different culture. So you have to learn a whole separate set of masking skills on top of the linguistic skills if you're learning, a foreign language. Does OCD affect language learning? Almost undoubtedly. I'm probably better at, and I'm just spitballing here, but probably better at, memorizing and retaining, but also less likely to use anything because it's, you want it to be perfect and correct. Oh, thank you. In the chat, grise, brune, okay, petit, petite, etc. Vert, verte. Thank you. Let's see. Jose said in the subjunctive video, it's clear in some parts, but not so in others. I feel like that's maybe I can, if you send me more questions that you have, I can make another follow-up video later because you're not the only person to say that. But I also think it may be part of the nature of the subject. All right, neurodivergence. Bulletproof Kate said, I think my neurodivergence is part of the reason why I became such a giant linguistics nerd and studied to become trilingual out of the desperate attempt to understand communication. That is my idea of linguists. There's a small handful who are like very gregarious and outgoing and everything else, but the overwhelming majority, even if they are gregarious and outgoing, they're trying to understand what is going on around them. And I used to joke, like when I first started grad school, I was joking about the academic spectrum. I stopped joking about that because it really is something that linguistics really selects for a particular way of thinking, and the strengths that neurodivergent people have, especially ADHD and autism, and to a certain extent OCD, those really play into academia, and in particular academic linguistics. So it's I'm not surprised to hear that. It kind of draws everybody in who's there, or as I sometimes call myself, sort of on that side of town. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, let's see. Okay, masking and code switching. Yes. Yes. That's all. If you want to look on Google Scholar, the keywords that you're looking for are persona construction or personae, like AE at the end. And that is the sort of linguistic and social construction of face. It's like how you want to be perceived. So code switching, audience design, all those things are, I mean, there's a very robust academic literature on all of those things because of course there is. But those all relate, and those are all, I think, related to masking. I'm not sure if people have actually explicitly made that link, but you're 100% right there. Okay, so let me just say what I was going to talk about today is I have kind of switched how I am studying languages. For those of you who followed the live stream almost a full year ago, I studied Persian for 3 months. And what I can tell you now from that experiment is that what I did not work. There's some rattling around. I have a lot of recognition, but I cannot speak Persian. I'm not doing great with Persian. I may revisit it, I may not. But what I learned from that is a couple of things. And there's a couple of takeaways that I'm going to be implementing myself and that I'm going to share with everybody here. So Anki definitely works. Naughty mnemonics definitely work. Having visuals definitely works. Having audio definitely helps. What I was doing was full sentences and close deletion, which is very similar to that guy in Taiwan who he kept harassing me to be on his channel until I called him out. It's very similar to that product. I'm not going to name the product because I don't want to direct you to it. And also, if you're already using it, you know what it is. But basically, I think sentence mining and close deletion alone, not effective. I think it's too much to remember. I think it's too much structure to remember. You don't end up with a key piece that you can actually recycle and use later. So I remember a lot of words, shalvar, nazdik, all that stuff. But I don't know why I just said trousers nearby, but whatever. Everybody should have trousers nearby. But the issue is doing full sentences, like, you know, have it translate like the exercises in the textbook. That's what I was doing. I didn't find that worked for me at all. And I think if I were going to go back and do it again, which I am, I don't know exactly when, what I would do is something more like what I'm currently doing for Spanish and for other languages, and that is really just focusing on vocabulary. Lematize the vocabulary. So I saw a guy who's like, I learned 22,500 words in Russian and now I understand everything. And he's got this massive list. He's got all these sentences and everything. But the words are not lemmatized, meaning he has all different endings for the same word. So like if I say walk, walking, walked, walks, right? He'd count those as 4 different words. And he'd be like, you know, I memorized those words. That is a huge inflation of your vocabulary. But also you don't need, if you understand the grammar, you don't need to memorize more than just to walk and then be able to like do that, whatever needs to happen for it. So declining adjectives, conjugating verbs, and so on. So I'm all in, one word at a time guy, got me kind of enthusiastic about this. All in on just build a very large vocabulary. Simultaneously, you have to be able to do something with that, which means like actually understanding the grammar. That's what I got out of my initial study of Persian, was understanding the grammar. When I look at something, I know what's going on in the sentence. And if I know what the words are, so much the better. So what I'm going to do is share a screen. What I've been doing is these let me get my screen over here so I can see what I'm doing on OBS. But what I've been doing is these frequency dictionary, Anki decks. And they're not perfect. A lot of times it's from subtitles and whatever else that, you know, people use. But I'm going to share with you what I'm doing in languages right now. So I've been doing the Hebrew Duolingo 2023 Anki deck. I love it. It is way too much stuff, but you can go through by the skills. And for instance, you see verbs, present, all. I have 150 reviews to do. That's probably like 500 cards. What I like about it is learning Hebrew. So for anybody learning Hebrew, the Anki decks, Duolingo, actually has a pretty good course, but you don't see the material enough to actually learn and retain it, especially for native English speakers. It's just like you need more. What this does is it has an Anki deck, and I'll just show you like one of my reviews here. So let's study now. You all should be able to see that. So this is, look at this, remembers, masculine, plural, and I just pick one of these 4. It's a really nice like multiple choice thing going on. It'll play me the audio, so zochrim. Let's see.
Zochrim.
Zochrim. Okay, and I'm just checking here. Yeah, good. Making sure that nobody's here. Like, we can't hear you, because that sometimes happens. I see my audio, my mic input, so okay, good. So anyway, I'm using this deck, which I really like. It's slow going, but I'm actually remembering. And zocher, you know, et kol hamilim that I'm learning. So I think that's actually really, really helpful. So that's one thing. And just if you're learning Hebrew, go out and get this deck. I like the 2023 version more than the 2024 version. Notice that units and skills, those are exactly the same. It's just in a different order. So I like the 2023 one with all the emoji. For those of you learning Hebrew, really good recommendation. I also have been going through, let's see. Let me sync, because I don't even see these on here. I've also been going through the frequency dictionaries of a handful of things, and I find these useful, but don't get bogged down in the example sentences. We're going to go back and revisit the example sentences. While this is loading up, I will just come back to full screen and make sure that I can see what all you are saying here. So I really do like that. If somebody put up a lot of the Routledge frequency dictionaries, I think I have one. Yeah. I got one right here for Mandarin. So these are real books that you can actually buy, and I would recommend, you know, buy the book. If you're going to download the Anki deck, buy the book. You don't have to, but, you know, it's what I would encourage. And I've been doing that for Persian, just for funsies, and Spanish, just for actually like learnsies. I'm just burying a ton of cards because I, you know, I know them already. And what I'll say is like lematize it, right? So if you're doing this like with something where it's just a big old like data dump, then you don't need to memorize walks, walking, walked, will walk, all that stuff. Just use one and use it to memorize everything else, and then bury all the other cards. So let's see. I have here frequency dictionary of Spanish. I got 28 due. I got 15 to learn. And this is what I'm kind of enjoying right now. So you got gobierno. Gobierno. I need to make that 3 syllables, not 4. And then you have an example sentence. The example sentences are wild. So like if you're learning the, right, you might want to say like, okay, the boy is reading the book. And what you get instead is like, the autocratic government's history of repression is like very advanced vocabulary, which you can't understand until you get all the vocabulary. So just don't worry about it. But I will say I am trying to like take a look at like what the sentence structure is. Like I know that fue is the past tense of a particular verb, and so on and so on. So el feudalismo fue la forma de gobierno. So click on this. Government, right? Super easy, but not something that I would necessarily have remembered. And then I just keep it going. Now, I mentioned Persian. So this is where I am. I'm like, I just started this yesterday, you can see. And so mohem, right? Review. It means important, right? And then you have the whole sentence here. Notice, for those of you where I was like, I don't even see the alphabet. So I am reading it in Persian here. But we see yeki as mohem cheese. Yeki as hame cheese mohemtare. So, or mohemtar est. So you have mohem as the stem here for mohemtar, which is like more important, I guess. This, I'm really not trying to memorize the sentence. It's actually not that complicated a sentence. I said yeki because I'm not reading. What is that? Paki? Paki as hame cheese mohamtare. So, great. With this sentence, I guess I can like fit in Afghanistan. But the idea here is like, I'm just trying to memorize mohem and then keep it moving. And I might go back and revisit these once I have a larger vocabulary. Now, I see in the chat, how did you make the multiple choice card? I did not. I downloaded that deck. There's a 2024 version. There's probably going to be a 2025 version. But I downloaded the Hebrew Duolingo 2023 with the emojis. And I love it. So they did all the coding. You could probably reverse engineer the coding from just looking at the cards in Anki, but that's way above my pay grade when it comes to Anki. Ham and cheese, yeah, ham cheese. Cheese is thing in Persian, and hame is like every. So it's ham cheese like from everything, from all things, or have a ham and cheese, whatever helps you remember. Whoa, I think I just got an email that was too loud. So let's see. Yeah, thanks for Bulletproof Kate for the story about the lawyer trying to pull a fast one. So this is, where do you download these decks? On the Anki site? And the answer is yes. Download them on the Anki site. You can see I have a problem. I download a bunch of them, and then I evaluate whether I like them, and I delete a lot of them. So I kind of go through a lot of these. The biblical Hebrew vocabulary one is also frequency list. Pretty good. The pronunciation is wild because it's just some like seemingly evangelical Christian white woman from the middle of the United States saying the words. So there's definitely like a slight Southern American accent, but it is what it is. Let's see. Ironically, not halal. Yeah. The more he reads that sentence, the hungrier I'm getting. Yeah, hame cheese, not halal, not kosher. So let's see. Since the subjunctive can be used in the main clause, does that mean we call the subjunctive? We can say the subjunctive to negate the verb without using the word no. I like where your head's at. That's not a usual use of it. I saw Von Pedro said RIP, RIP headphone users. RIP me, that was really loud here. So, and I have it on Do Not Disturb and everything. I got to learn how to live stream for real, you guys. For real. So yeah, what I do, and Susan, this is the question that is exactly where I was going. So do I use Anki to learn the words or to test whether I know them? So learning is a process of forgetting over and over again, and then remaking those neural connections, and it takes time. So recognizing is not knowing. This was a huge, like, if I could have gone back in time and told myself that 20, 30 years ago, that would have been incredible for me. Recognizing is not knowing. Learning comes from more than just recognizing. It comes from generating and testing all that stuff. So I use the Anki deck now to actually learn the words, and I use the Hebrew Duolingo course to see them in context and retain them a little bit better. So what I'm doing now is I'm reviewing all the stuff where I have all these gaps, like a lot of the verbs I need more practice on. And then when I'm ready to keep going, what I am going to do is actually do the vocabulary first in the Anki deck, and then do the Duolingo lessons. Because when you're trying to extract a new word and figure out what the lemma is, instead of just, just this one conjugation or declension or whatever, like trying to figure out what is the word, I had been taking notes, writing it all down, circling the word, transliterating, just doing as much as I could to sort of unpack it. This has replaced that for me because I don't have to extract the information and then figure out how to systematize it. It's all systematized, it's all extracted, and it's just a question of doing the tedium of actually memorizing it, which is seeing it over and over again, having to generate it. This deck is particularly good because you start with recognition, and then you get to you get the English word and you have to pick the Hebrew word, and then later you get the English word and you have to write the Hebrew word, and it'll tell you if you're spelling it right or not. It means it's a ton of cards. So on prepositions, it's like 400 cards, but I know that they're finite. I know that that's what it's doing, and I try to just do more because I know it's not just like a never-ending deck. So if it's 400 cards, I might do 50 in a day instead of 15 in a day because it's going to be fine. I'm just going to dump them into like longer and longer reviews where I don't have to see it, and I find that really helpful. So what I would do if I were starting from scratch for a language, like if I'm going to go back to Persian, what I will do when I go back to Persian, I'm going to take the textbook, I'm going to go through the vocabulary lists first, and I'm going to make an Anki deck of all the vocabulary lists. I might then take sample sentences from the exercises or from the text that illustrate that vocabulary in context and put those as a secondary piece of information for the card. If I have the energy, what I will do is get like Forvo or clip the audio from the audio that goes with the textbook to have examples of those words. And I think part of why I got lazy with the sentences is because I didn't want to have to do all the hard work of clipping the individual words. So I might do transliteration for myself, but that's less effective. It's a trade-off of like time and energy. But what I would do is, go through all the vocabulary. I already know the grammar because I find that stuff interesting. So analyze the grammar when I see sentences like, let's see, we saw ham and cheese. So what do we have? Mohem. So again, pa ki as ham and cheese mohem tare. My pronunciation, just ignore. So we'll say that was easy. And mored. Don't remember what that is. It might be a new word for me. So I have this whole sentence. Forget about it. Let's see what it is. Case. So that is a new word for me. The case is different. It has nothing to do with you. So in mored. In moredesh. Right. Farg mikonad. And I don't even know if that's the right vowels for that. I just need to remember mored and then go back to it. So, Zevel, good to see you. I'm going to go pretty soon, too. But the idea here for me is, like, I find the grammar interesting, and it's the kind of thing that I can read a textbook, extract what the grammatical rules are, and remember them, and that's fine. Maybe I'll diagram it or something, but I don't need to put it into, like, a bunch of cards. So for me, I need to memorize the vocabulary. The larger your vocabulary is, the more you can actually understand what's going on around you and figure out some of what the grammatical challenges are. So I'm all in on getting the largest, most useful vocabulary. And what that means is frequency lists of what is actually used. Now, this frequency dictionary of Persian claims to be colloquial. It's not. It's like news and movies and whatever, but it's mostly news and print media. So there's one that has like 10,000 subtitles. It's really noisy data, but it's also 10,000 words. So even if it's really noisy, by the time you're done with the thing, the noise washes out. And then with a baseline of a lot of words, because I already understand and enjoy studying the grammar, like I'm doing those simultaneously, then you can go out and actually like have fun with real stuff. So going to the public library, buying books and listening to them and so on. But it's not what I was doing last year. And what I did last year, I don't speak Persian. I understand the grammar really well. I don't have the recall for the vocabulary. So it's very clear to me now that vocabulary recall is something that I need to work on in particular. Some of you may find that you just remember the words. Like my wife just remembers words. She recognizes relationships between them. She has good mnemonics. She sees cognates that I don't even recognize as cognate. And she's like, oh yeah, of course it's cognate with this. I'm like, oh my God, I see it now. I'm just not wired that way. So I have to actually just beat the words into my head, but I do get the grammar. So your mileage may vary. This is really what I'm doing right now. And again, for the Hebrew speakers, like I have languages here that says languages. If you see it on the screen, that's I have Spanish and French. That's Duolingo. I'm just ripping through the Duolingo vocabulary. I am speed running Duolingo because they've changed the course, and I find it now basically useless for memorizing. So it's just good for seeing example sentences. And I'm using Duolingo is kind of secondary to my my primary study of like, words and grammatical structures, where it's just now a resource for a lot of example sentences that are more or less organized thematically. So let's see, I'm going to switch back over to full screen. I'm going to take a look at these comments, and then I'm going to go get a coffee and read a book because I've earned it. And if you want to pay for the coffee, this is my time to say you can always use Super Chat and Super Thanks. I'll be probably saying more of that in the new year. Again, after having not put ads or anything. So, yeah. I see, let's see, how's your Spanish? I already answered that. It's okay. It's going along. And we're getting there. The next ad read in my channel will be in Spanish. Miriam Schweingruber says, creating a deck is part of the learning process. I agree, but I hate that part of the learning process. And I've found that making that part of the learning process is a hurdle that makes me and my wife and a lot of people around me procrastinate. So I'd rather take a deck that somebody else made, even if it's a little noisy, rather do that than make my own. Because I find it super annoying. Now with a textbook, I can just go through and be like, I'm going to do this page today, I'm going to do that page tomorrow. But like, I hate that process, even though it's really effective. So it's like, recognizing what I'm actually going to do. Doing that for the Ukrainian course sounds great though. Let's see. You like how I mentioned cognitive neuroscience of forgetting? It's the growth mindset is huge, and learning is forgetting. And that's just so eye-opening for me. Okay, negation, unrealized sentences. Yeah, Jose, that's because the reason you have a hard time with that is because that's hard. It's really hard. Like I said, with the French children's book that I was looking at, I had to take a moment and be like, wait, why is that in the subjunctive? Oh, like I never would have come up with a sentence. Now I can kind of, use that frame to come up with a bunch of others that are like it. Okay, aim into large vocab, exactly. And I'm going to wrap up here. So I'm going to read these comments, and then I'm going to wrap up. So it's what you've been doing so far. Good. Exporting and re-importing in the opposite order. Smart. Meryl said, God, that's a lot of cards. Yeah, I don't do them all every day. And I bury a lot of them. I need to bury a lot of them. Random thought. Sort of no such thing as using a language incorrectly. That is, yes, accurate, but also you can use it more or less the way that it is used by the community that speaks it, which is sort of getting into that C2 question. Let's see. Amazing to pair Duolingo with Anki and sync. That would be incredible, and I bet Duolingo would never want anybody to do that. They want you to use Duolingo. And if you sync it with something like Anki, then you're going to memorize it faster. You're going to learn it faster. And then maybe you use Duolingo for another language, but maybe you just wanted to learn Spanish or something, and then you're done, and they either don't serve you ads anymore or no longer, have your Duolingo Plus or Pro or whatever dollars. So that's the thing. I like Duolingo, but I also recognize they have a perpetual money-making model rather than you buy a thing, you learn all the stuff. Raymond, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Raymond just put $10 in the chat, and I will I will resist the urge to do the like NPC responses to it, but yeah, thank you. That will buy me a macchiato and a and whatever Chaim Sheli, my wife. If you're watching this, text me what you want. We're getting coffee on Raymond today. Snow, you didn't miss the live stream. You just didn't catch most of it, but it'll be up. I see. Ooh, that's a lot of code. Hey, I didn't know you live stream. I do sometimes. I'm trying to be better about it. I might start scheduling regular ones. This is an impromptu one, and I'm trying to get good at live streaming. So I'm going to do live streams. I might have to separate the channels and keep them under one umbrella. I will absolutely do more live streams in the future. And you can all leave me comments for what days and times work best for you all. Looks like Wednesday at 1:30, 1:45 was actually surprisingly good. Okay. Let's wrap this up. I see Happy Thanksgiving in 2 weeks. Same to everybody. If you are Canadian, I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. If you are American, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And Snow, there will be more Hebrew live streams. It might just be me doing Anki for a little while. I'm so annoyed at the Routledge colloquial textbook, but we're all kind of in it together. So I will bring those back. And live stream learning Spanish, it's also probably going to be just me and an Anki deck. But you know what? Sure. If you all want to watch it, I'll do it. I will I will live stream. Especially, Raymond, again, thank you. If you guys are buying me coffee, I'll live stream all day. All right, I see. Evening time in Europe is good. Okay. Yes, it's a coffee break for some people. Evening in Europe. It's morning in America. All right. I was about to say love you all. Thank you all. Really appreciate everything. And look forward to the new video coming out this week. I got more coming up. A little more sponsorship too from Lingoda and LingoPie, which I use and like. And italki. So if you like them, keep an eye out because there might be a good time to hop on with whatever discounts they provide to me. I guess until next time. What about the Farsi live stream? I might bring it back. Incognito, sorry. You'll catch one. So do I ever do more computer science? I do a ton of the computer science side of stuff with sociophonetics, and maybe I'll make live streams about that too, or videos about it. All right. Thank you all. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Those of you who are celebrating it, have a wonderful rest of your week. And be kind to everybody out there. So I'm gonna stop streaming and see you all soon. Be well. You're gonna watch me figure out how to turn this off now. That's half of my live streams are still like, is this thing on? All right. Now would be a good time to insert ads. Nah, I'm gonna do it. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna insert an ad right now because YouTube tells me to. You can feel free to stick around, but I'm ending it. This is just me figuring out when to do it. All right. See y'all later.